Antibodies and antigens. Let's use, for an example, let's use a goat as the organism and THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, as the antigen. So if the goat is subjected to tetrahydrocannabinol, the goat, first of all, recognizes the THC, and second of all, the metabolism of the goat generates a vigorous metabolic response. So the two questions are, first of all, how does the goat recognize the THC? And second of all, what brings about this vigorous metabolic response? We need a couple of introductory ideas. The antibodies are made in white blood cells. A white blood cell kind of matures in the marrow of the bone. It starts out as like a baby primordial white blood cell and turns into a full-blown leukocyte. In the process, it produces antibodies. It goes down a track which produces one antibody, but the antibodies come from white blood cells. The structure of the antibody is, it's usually drawn like this. It has the constant part and the variable part. And the constant part is what identifies it as an antibody. And there's different classes of antibodies because of different constant parts. But it's the variable part that actually recognizes the antigen. For the THC recognition, the recognition is on the variable side of it. Okay, let's look at the genetics that makes the antibody. Let's take a piece of DNA, and I want it kind of long because it's kind of a long transcript. And then there's the constant part is here. And then there's the variable part in the DNA has all these little sections. I use a textbook by Robert Weaver. He uses this analogy. He says it's like going into a Chinese restaurant. You have column A, column B, and column C, and you order something from column A, something from column B, something from column C, and they bring it to you in the order in which you ordered it. So you get something from A, and something from B, something from C. If there's, say, 10 things in A, 20 things in B, and 30 things in C, there's a lot of different combinations you can come up with. The DNA is scrambled. The genetics of the primordial white blood cell scrambles the genetics in a similar sort of way and gets an incredible variety through this. It works like this. The transcript picks up the constant part, and then it picks up a little part out of this one, 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 and a little part out of this one. And the DNA is recombined in different ways depending upon which sections are picked, and it's completely arbitrary. They say that the antibodies can be rearranged to produce 100 million different antibodies, but it's random. The change is in the DNA of the primordial leukocyte. So the leukocyte grows up into a leukocyte specific for one antibody. So I think the answer to our first question falls right out of this. How does the goat recognize the THC? The goat doesn't recognize the THC. Out of these 100 million antibodies, one of them is going to match for THC. And then the second question kind of falls out of this too. If the leukocyte looks like this, and it's got all these antibodies coming out of it, and an antigen comes along that recognizes one of these antibodies, a genetic signal is triggered, and the leukocyte divides. Remember that the change is in the leukocyte itself. There's 100 million leukocytes with 100 different antigens. This leukocyte divides. It produces two white blood cells that are the same as it, with the same antigen and the same recognition site, and they're going to get stimulated again. The daughter cells are going to take the same stimulation and they're going to divide again. And the result of this is that there's this cascade of growth which produces the vigorous response to the antibody, to the antigen, to the THC. And then it's easy to see how a vaccination will work. You take, like for some kind of cold virus or something like that, you take a weakened version of it, stimulate the body, stimulate the child with it. The child's body says, oh, I have something to worry about, and it generates massive numbers of leukocytes for this particular antigen. And then at least in mammals, there's kind of a memory system built into it, so that an immunization from a child will be mostly remembered through the child's life.